Thank you so much, Tony. I brought my iPad up here because I have a lot to say about Wendy Lea. Have you ever met somebody and you say, you know what, that's who I want to be when I grow up? I want to be Wendy Lea when I grow up. But make no confusion here. The gray hair says I've gotten older, but I had not grown up. Is that right, Allison? Thank you. It's my honor to introduce and welcome Wendy Lea back to Mississippi. She's an Ole Miss alumnus. She is a true Mississippi girl. She went to high school in Clinton. She graduated from Ole Miss, originally from Oxford. She's woven her expertise through the fabric of innovation and entrepreneurship, impacting economic growth on multiple levels, from corporate innovation to vibrant startup ecosystems. She's been the CEO and co-founder of Energize Colorado, fostering economic revival and leading COVID-19 relief efforts. She's on the advisory board for the Center for American Entrepreneurship. She's a member of the National Advisory Council for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, a mentor and advisor to numerous tech accelerators, and a catalyst for sustainable economic strategies and innovative advancements. Wendy encapsulates her approach to innovation with a profound understanding that, and this is a quote, "Innovation first started with culture, and then there were people who operated in the culture who actually made up the culture. And then there were technology innovations that were aligned or needed to be aligned with processes." As she takes the stage for the keynote, Driving Entrepreneurial Growth Through an Ecosystem Strategy, she will elaborate on the synergy of culture, people, processes, and technology as a cornerstone of entrepreneurial success. Please join me in a warm welcome to Wendy Lea.
All righty then. Can you guys hear me back here, back there? All good? I don't think I need, I'm going to put this mic here so it doesn't crash. This is so fun. It's really awesome. It's just awesome, first of all, to be here with my mom, Cameron Fox. Yay. Yeah. It's, we see each other from time to time, but not enough. So it's really, thank you, Mom, for coming and hanging out for this talk. So there's so many things on my mind. I've thought a lot about the impact I would like to leave today. All of you, all the leaders of Innovate Mississippi, you've talked consistently about ecosystem. So in almost every person's comments, there's been this word. I want to light that up. I want to light it up for you so you can get under the hood of an ecosystem like the one you have here, like the one you're part of, to really find ways, they don't have to be complex ways, but ways that you can strengthen all the elements. Because you look at a website, it doesn't look that hard, right? Ecosystem, yay, we got some mentors, we got some capital, we've got a website, that has resources on it. We must be an ecosystem. Well, you have some building blocks for an ecosystem. You have some essential elements for an ecosystem. But an ecosystem is about building, which means it's about risk-taking, which means sometimes it doesn't work out. Shock horror. Like mostly, it doesn't work out. And then when it doesn't work out, you cannot be shamed because you failed. You just get up and you begin again. And it could take 15 years. It could take longer. But I do think the cultural centerpiece of an ecosystem is non-trivial to its long-term success. Maybe not short-term success, maybe not conference success, but long-term success. So those are just some thoughts that came to mind as I was hearing comments this morning. So I'm going to get and be not formal, because I'm from Mississippi. I'm not that formal, but I do have a lot to say. And our okay, let's see. Yep, I'm hitting the green arrow and it's not moving. So you want to move it for me? Okay, cool. Thanks. Okay, so driving entrepreneurial growth through ecosystem strategy. An ecosystem strategy has a lot of leverage baked into it, right? One business at a time does not build an ecosystem. An ecosystem is a wiring of all the elements required to build a business, but you have to have points of leverage throughout all the different elements. So we're going to talk a lot about that. Okay, background. Yeah, you'll get it sorted out. So I'm going to go through 3 main parts of the presentation. I've got about 30 minutes. If I don't need it, I won't take it, so we can all move on with our day. But I want to give you a little background so you'll kind of know where I'm coming from. I want to talk about culture and ecosystem dynamics, and then I'm going to really celebrate your success and your progress, right? I think it's worthy of celebration, especially all this federal money you've pulled in with, Build to Scale and all these other grants. I know how hard they are because I do that for a living. Okay, so first of all, these are some friends of mine. We're actually at a big event in Aspen, which is a pretty sweet place. I'm from Boulder, by the way. I live there now. But these are entrepreneurs. They are entrepreneurs. Sal in the very front, he has a venture fund. It's about $50 million. This is his second fund. He's doing very well. He invests all over the U.S., so I would want him to come visit you guys here in Mississippi. His sister behind him runs an accelerator. Her name is Sally. The lady to the left's name is Courtney Walsh, and she works for Kimball Musk of the Musk family. And she does a lot of things entrepreneurial, because he does, right? And there I am, and we're all together because we were celebrating a big fundraising event, because if you're an entrepreneur, you're fundraising all the time, in Aspen. And the expressions on our face, not just the beauty behind, the mountains behind, really talk about how entrepreneurs feel when they're together. So this kind of convening and other convenings, if you're building, you want to be together, right? And this is what it feels like, because you're sharing ideas, you're complaining, you're looking for customers, you're talking about all the things. But it's that energy of entrepreneurship that is so important to ecosystems. And it happens. I felt it in the halls when I was coming up and down in the hotel. And you just want that a lot, right? Not every day is a good day, but that was a good day because I was able to share what was happening with all the businesses I worry about and learn from them too. So now, about me personally, I'm the oldest of 4 kids. That means I'm naturally bossy, and I wanted to be a leader from the time I was born. So we know that. I've lived around the world, which it's not like I planned to do that. It just kind of happened as life happens. Lived around the world, 5 countries, 5 states. So you might think I'm a bit of a gypsy. We can talk to my mom about that, because I guess I am. Everywhere I went, I was driven by curiosity and creativity and my own kind of courage, and I just wanted to be independent. As a little girl, I did not want to ask my mom for anything or my grandparents for anything. I wanted to make my own way, and that drove my entrepreneurial pursuits, right? That's really what drove them. Although I never heard of being an entrepreneur when I was a young girl. I mean, that was not a thing. It wasn't like, oh, go take a class and be an entrepreneur. I'm like, I just want to be independent, take care of myself. That'll be good. If I could do that, I'd be good. So about me now, though, I run ecosystems. I ran one in Ohio. I run one in Colorado. I work for governors. I do public-private partnerships. They're pretty complex entities because you got a lot of stakeholders. And what I think about the most for a state like Mississippi are the conditions that have to exist for you entrepreneurs in the room to thrive. Because these are conditions that have to be present. There has to be the spirit of building. There has to be enough capital to play with. There's never enough, but there has to be enough to play with to get started and to grow a little bit and then to get a little bit more. There has to be plenty of people that have succeeded and failed, because you learn as much from those that failed as the ones that succeeded. And you have to have access to talent. Really important. And I didn't use the word workforce. I think that's a pretty traditional term. I'll just put that out there. I'm talking talent. People that can learn fast, apply their smarts in a way that can produce a product or a service. So these are the things that really make up an important ecosystem. And I'm just, the work I do now is all about that. So I'm working on a federal grant. Colorado was just named a quantum tech hub. Pretty cool. Really hard. Pretty cool. We'll see where that goes, but that was a big deal. That's $1 billion opportunity over 10 years for a state that does everything organically, right? We don't do catalytic investing in ecosystems, and we decided to do that, and we won it, so that was pretty cool. So, and also this Energize Colorado opportunity, we deployed $50 million of loans and grants to SETI businesses across the state. These are businesses that have 10 employees or less. So my experience is built a business, sold it for $250 million, had 4 partners. That was awesome. You would say, oh, well, that was a big exit. I never thought of it as an exit. I just thought of it as a stage in my professional life where then I got to learn new things. And then I became an angel investor. Then I became a board member. Then. So all of these are milestones that helped me understand how to build and develop an ecosystem so others could have the success that I was able to experience. Okay, now, a construct that I want to put forward, very important. Our economy, not just Mississippi's economy, the U.S. economy is highly dependent on new builders. Have you ever heard that phrase, new builder? You should get this book. It's very important, written by a good friend of mine. It's a research book. It's not a storybook, so there's a lot of data in it, but very important. Most new businesses are started by people who are black, brown, women, and older, like me. That's how it rolls. So this is not like San Francisco, Silicon Valley, get a t-shirt, get some tats, get going. That's cool too. This is the future. And as soon as we recognize that, the better off we'll be. Many of these builders are immigrants. Many of them have been left out of the narrative for a range of reasons. I won't even go into them, right? They are individually strong and collectively mighty, and those new builders are changing the landscape of our economy and certainly of entrepreneurship. They're creating success in their own terms, which may mean that they don't get institutional capital. Right? Maybe those businesses grow through EBITDA or through revenues. That's fine. That's how my first one grew. I didn't even know what a VC was. Had no clue. Did just fine. Sold it for $250 million, and we owned it 100%. So it can happen. Doesn't happen all the time, but it can. It can. So here's some stats, because I think these are very important. First of all, women make up more than half of all business owners in the U.S. Women are starting businesses growing more than 4x the rate of others. That's a big number. Have you seen these stats? mean, these are big numbers to pay attention. Women of color are responsible for 64% of new women-owned businesses. The average age of a startup leader is 45. There you go. With or without a tattoo, 45 years. Entrepreneurship rate in the U.S. is driven by people of Hispanic origin, whose rate of entrepreneurship is almost twice that of the other groups. Immigrants are twice as likely as native-born Americans to start businesses. Like, guys, these are new builders. They are taking a chance. They are changing the landscape of our entrepreneurial economy. Your numbers, this is SBA material. You can kind of see the profile of your small businesses, and most startups are in this category, by the way, right? Small business in federal terms is 500 employees or less. I usually deal with 10 employees or less, which are called SETI businesses, either as a early stage startup or just a small business on Main Street. But, I mean, your numbers here bear out the pattern that I just showed, is the reason I brought them forward. They are similar, which would say lots of upside here in our beautiful state. Lots of upside if we can excite and unite all folks who want to be in charge of their future. You may not call this a career. It may not be a career. It's a chapter of business building that you've decided you want to pursue. But our state here mirrors the profile of a new builder. That's why I wanted to start there. Now, two quick things, because they're very different and it's very important to distinguish. There are startup communities all over the world. In every country. I was on the board of Techstars for 4 years. We had a whole group that did nothing but go and do startup weekends all over the world. We did it free. We didn't charge because we wanted to ignite growth through entrepreneurship, right? So startup communities are very distinct. Mainly, it's about founders and about some capital or angel providers. You may or may not have a prestigious organization like Innovate Mississippi to organize that. It's self-driven. It's just people wanting to be with like-minded people, right? Startup communities are a lovely thing. In Cincinnati, we had one, and we called it Startup Cincy. We had T-shirts, we had beer, we had all the things. We had a big old building, yay us, co-working space, yay, yay. But that's not what our city leaders, and that's not what John Kasich wanted. He was happy to have a bunch of startup communities in Columbus and Cleveland and Cincinnati, but what he really wanted was growth, right? Lots of startups, lots of young and old people starting things from scratch that would attract other talent. There was so much density, more talent would come in, and then his state would be known for being an innovator. Now, you say, well, P&G's there, they were innovators. Well, that was a long time ago, right? That was hundreds of years ago, right? So even P&G wanted new innovators and new companies, and so that's why the state invested, like Mississippi has done, in seed funds and in accelerators and in public-private partnerships. So the whole startup community opportunity just happens naturally, right? It just happens naturally in any city across the state, right? All four corners of the state. An ecosystem is different. Please hear that. It's not better. It's just different. And it's not all organized up and over-engineered and, it's not that either. There's a lot of organic conditions there too, but its purpose is more specific. The purpose is economic vitality for the geography, for the technology area, for the people involved. So I just want you to know it has more system in it, right? Where a startup community sometimes is called an ecosystem, but it's not really an ecosystem yet because all the members of the node are not in it. We got that opportunity here in spades, so I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So Brad Feld, very dear friend of mine, I've built several nonprofits with him. I've never taken money from him. I've never worked for him, but he is a real thought leader around startup communities and ecosystems. These are just two of, I think he's written 12 or 15 books. They're not all about ecosystems, by the way, but I want to really make that point because I think what we have here is an evolving ecosystem. I wouldn't use the word mature, or I wouldn't because I don't like being old, right? So don't use that word. You're just evolving. You're structuring things differently. You're leveraging federal money in a unique way. Thank goodness, because now you have two awesome funds. And I talked to Lindsay before I came, and she kind of gave me that pitch so I could understand, what you were doing with that SSBCI money. But it's a very different thing. So, ecosystems versus startup communities. So how do you know if you're in a startup community, right? This is what it looks like. It kind of looks like a party before a football game, right? Like maybe at the Grove, you don't know. But what it looks like is stories of success, stories of failure, desire for help, right? I wish my valuation was better. That angel pulled out of the deal. Blah, blah, blah. And by the way, the engineer guy I hired, the CTO, he's terrible. And I got to get rid of him. And it's cost me a fortune already. Like, that's the kind of conversation going down. But it's sparkly. It's self-organizing. It's vibrant. And this is not a college campus. This could be any coffee shop in San Francisco or any coffee shop here, right? Like-minded people coming together to share their stories about the businesses they're building and the future they see and the problem they're trying to solve. Because entrepreneurs are passionate about one thing, solving problems. They pick big hairy ones and go after it. Now, when it comes to the entrepreneurial ecosystem, this is a key slide, and if you went on my personal website, you could double-click underneath each of these and see examples of what would be in the node. So what we're talking about here is startups in the middle, right? Because they're the flywheel for economic vitality. Okay, very important. But they need certain things to continue to do their growing, right? They need water, right? They need a little fertilizer. They need some food. They need some people. So what we're doing here, and this is what has been interesting to study and observe, is that you have all the elements here, right? And you convene all these elements. What we want, though, are stronger connections between the nodes. Let me give you an example. All of you sponsors, you've been thanked several times. I've been here most of the morning. Thank you again for sponsoring these events. If you are a large company, a large employer, I think is what Mississippi calls them, right? And Colorado does too. I want you to do more than sponsor. Whatever you sponsored, yay, continue to do that. What I want you to do is to look inside your own organizations and understand the digital transformation that you are trying to enact as a leader, right? Operational efficiency, front office efficiency, supply chain efficiency, whatever it is. And I want you to think about working with one of the startups in the room with a pilot. I want you to pay the entrepreneur, and I want you to learn, thank you very much, you, corporation, and I want the entrepreneur to learn. Now, that's a risky thing. I know it is, because all these products don't work completely or all the time or consistently, but that's when you have an ecosystem, when it's not just your logo up here, when you're actually engaging in a conversation around your own goals, problems, and needs, and how that particular product or service can solve them. You say, oh, Wendy, that sounds so easy. Well, it's not easy, or it sounds crazy. Maybe you think it sounds crazy. In Cincinnati, in 4 years, that was my #1 KPI. When I got there, I could find about 30 startups. I know there were more, but I could find 30. I did an inventory of them. I knew what they were building, how much capital they raised, who their customers, who they wanted their customers to be. By the end, we had, and I was only there 4 years. That was my commitment. I was over and out 4 years. That was it. And we had right at 800 startups. And I knew where they were in the continuum. Again, I knew how much money they raised, but I was in charge of helping them with getting customers. Kroger, Fifth Third Bank, Children's Hospital, cross-sector big companies in just Southwest Ohio. I created a set of conditions so those companies, not just the CEO, but many different executives in the company, would actually sit down with startups and not try to mentor them. Don't let a large company person try to mentor you. It's not good. Well, because they just don't know how, right? Because they're an executive. They're not building something from scratch. They haven't had to risk, a lot in a long time, maybe in early days, but that was the biggest problem I had, is all the mentors were all from large companies. I'm like, I didn't have enough, young startup folks to mentor each other, so that was a problem. But the point is, you can do this. You can, if you are a corporation, a business, you need digital tools. You do. And where do you buy them from? Large companies. Big companies buy from large companies. You usually pay too much, just saying. And the technology is usually not current, just saying, because they're not innovating all the time. I'm not saying they're not great companies. I'm just saying they're past their innovation cycle. Why not work with a company sitting at table 15? And see or table 30, just if it's an opportunity that can help you grow your business, right? If not, keep looking. But the question I would have is, where's the list that I can look at from Innovate Mississippi so I can see how many cyber companies I have, how many blockchain companies I have, how many marketing companies I have, right? Like, where are they in their stage? In other words, how much have they been de-risked, right? Because I need them to be de-risked before I take them on into a big public company environment, because that could blow up and not be a good thing for any of us. So this is just one example. You've got each of these nodes. The question I'm saying to you guys, if you're a part of this ecosystem, is which node are you in? What role do you play? And again, thank you very much for sponsoring if that's what you've done. But there's a lot more to an ecosystem than sponsoring an event and sponsoring a meetup, right? This takes all folks engaged, bringing their assets to the table. So this is a pretty cool slide. I hope you can kind of take that and make it your own. You can add different colors and different nomenclature if you want to do that. But remember, startups, new businesses are the growth engine. That is the flywheel you're trying to deal, or you're trying to set fire on and make it work. And then you've got capital providers. But I'm telling you, no excuses here today with all the capital you guys have going on. Honestly. I mean, between a direct fund, a new fund, 4 angel funds across the state, you've got some good foundation here. So I know it's still hard to raise money. I do understand that. Mostly you're going to get no's, but that's what it's about. You're going to have to kiss a lot of frogs. But this state now has a solid foundation to build on. And I think you should be very proud of that. And I'm proud that you guys here at Innovate Mississippi have done a good job with it. Okay, I'm going to get through. I'm almost done. So the dynamics of an ecosystem, this picture is really awesome. I really love it because it shows the relationships of some of these actors or nodes, because that's what you're going to have to figure out. Love the higher ed and research angle on this chart. Really, really important to understand that lots of innovation can come out of a university, but a lot of it also dies. I'm not talking about Ole Miss or Mississippi State or anyone in particular, just that it dies. It cannot get out. It suffocates, or it doesn't get the right team, right? And it just dies. And it's sad. And there's a big pool of it that sits around and makes a lot of people sad. But especially makes me sad, and especially makes the federal government sad, because that's why CHIPS and Science and Tech Hubs is trying to accelerate all that instead of it getting stuck and smothered to death with some kind of patent thing, right? That, maybe it's not even required. So I like that path, though, and you see in the middle, you see the startup organization and support organizations that prop it up, like Mississippi Innovate, so that's in the orange. Then you've got big companies. Notice they're in the chart here. Large corporations have a role, period, full stop, beyond just sponsoring, although we love you when you do. And then you've got people there at the bottom. Let's don't call that whole effort workforce. Let's just say that's talent. It's digital talent. What we need is a lot more digital talent, right? Digital natives build. Because we're not afraid to do a search. We're not afraid to cut code. We're not afraid to check in code. We're not afraid to try to experiment with an experience, with software, or whatever the product is. So you'll see that once the talent comes in, and maybe it's coming out of a university, you want to keep more of your talent from university. You don't want to lose it, right? But once it goes into the ecosystem, it actually gets groomed very nicely. And so then it can be referred to as entrepreneurial talent. And this could be finance and marketing. These are functional areas, not just engineering areas. I want to be clear about that. But once humans experience the high of building something new, even if it doesn't work out, you never turn back. You never turn back. Because why would you? Okay. Almost done. I just think you guys are knocking it out of the park. And I'm not saying it just to be nice, because I am kind of tough. But I will say that the grants you've been able to pull in and the entities that you guys have set up with these grants, that's awesome. Now, what we want is a cohort of 9 to 10 every quarter, because we need density. Right? 9 is not going to, and I love all the 9 that just went through the co-builder accelerator. That's awesome. Got to have a lot more than that, right? You got to scale that. So one at a time, one cohort at a time, once a year, it's not going to cut it. You're going to have to really ramp that up, get another grant from the EDA and ramp that up. And learn from your audience, from your entrepreneurs, what you can do better. So the whole build to scale is the money that supported co-builders. That's the way that goes. Then you've got your capital stack. This is not about a grant. I agree. And it's not about a loan. This is about equity. And if you're going to play in this game of high growth, which you're talking about, you're going to have many shots on goal with equity, from angels all the way up through the stack. And it is institutional capital. But there are lots of rounds to it. There's pre-seed, seed, A, B, C, D, right? There's lots of rounds to that. And we want here, what do we want? We want outside-in investors. And you said it was okay. You said that first money doesn't have to be from a neighbor. It can come from California. It can come from Chicago. It can come from Kentucky. You're neutral. Because once an investor, institutional capital comes to town, what happens if that business does well? It stays, and it looks for another place to invest. Please understand, this is an outside-in element to your ecosystem, and we got to have more than that. I'm sure we have great investors in the state. I'm not complaining at all, but you need more. Because investors don't invest alone. They want syndicate partners, right? And you've got to start building those syndicate partners that stay together. Not a club deal. I'm not calling it a club deal because that's not good. But I'm just saying people that know how to invest together, that understand backgrounds, the expertise you bring. So I like your capital stack that you're building out. I really do, right? I think you're on it. And then I also like, because I want to be clear, this Minority Business Development Agency grant you got, I think it was $1.87 million. So when it comes to an ecosystem, it's all entrepreneurs that matter. Yes, all entrepreneurs. Some are going to be venture-backed. Some are going to be EBITDA, and you're going to grow your business through revenue. Nothing wrong with that. That's how I did it. $50 million business I sold for $250. Pretty good ratio. Never took a penny of outside capital because I didn't know how to. So I just figured I have to sell a bunch of stuff and implement it well and grow. That's all I knew, and that's what we did, and it turned out well. So I think the Minority Business Development Agency grant, making sure that small businesses, BIPOC businesses can also sell into the federal government. That's what that agency does. Very, very important. And then you've got all the SBDC opportunities that we've been talking about. So that's very important because there's money there. So if there's money, Mississippi should try to get it, and Colorado, and all the other states. But I don't like lazy when state governments or local governments don't want to apply for federal money. Like, that's insane to me. Like, why wouldn't you? Let's go for it. All they can do is say no, and then you can try again. That's what we do now in Colorado, and I'm proud to be part of that. So this is the whole slide on co-builders. Love that program. Just want you to do a lot more of it. So I've already said that. I love your website. This is part of your new website. You should always make it easy for entrepreneurs to know how to get help. And you are. And I think it's a really good website. And I've seen some pretty bad ones, but I think this one is very good. And I want to encourage you to continue to build that, and so startups can find each other. I'm ending now. The point on this ecosystem slide is who is in each of the nodes. Of those nodes, which ones do you need most help with? How do you strengthen the connectivity between each of these nodes? Windows and doors must be open. I don't want to have to go kiss anybody's ring. Nope. I want to be able to meet and greet whenever it makes sense, introduce myself, talk about my value proposition. If there's interest, we talk again. If not, we move on. But no kissing rings, no opaqueness. It has to be very transparent, has to be very collaborative. Power has to be shared, which is only influence. That's how you get juice around the ecosystem through that connectivity. Very, very important. So this is just a map. You can make your own. You can tell it's important because I've showed it to you twice. And this is the last thing. And this is a real serious opportunity, I think, for us here. You have to have the right culture, you have to start with the vision. And I'm not pedantic about this. I'm not an academic. I would never qualify to teach anyone anything. I'm just saying that, can you describe here in Mississippi what our vision is for this ecosystem? Like in the next 5 years, how do we want to look? Because that needs to be said early, often, and the same way until you change the words for the next year. I also love when volunteers are entrepreneurs and they become leaders. So if I were you, I would make sure, and I've seen your board, it's very prestigious, you got very important people on your board. I would want to have another board, an advisory board, call it what you will, and I want all founders on it. Period. When I moved to Cincinnati, I had a big old fancy board, CEO, P&G, Kroger, blah, blah. I'm like, guys, we're the entrepreneurs. I don't know. I only know entrepreneurs. I know you're my bosses, and I respect that, but Rodney McMullen, the CEO of Kroger, when was the last time you started something from scratch? It's been a while, right? Now, he does. He's a great guy. But you see what I'm saying? You got to have some entrepreneurial input into your ecosystem. You've got to map the nodes and all the key players. That's a body of work I can help you with. And you've got to identify the gaps. I saw the mentor page. It looks like you've got great mentors. I want to see more entrepreneurs that have failed or succeeded on that page, right? Helping. And then we've talked about connective tissue, and we've talked about measure and communicate progress. So here are the last three things that I would always want to measure. I want to measure, think of a diagram that shows existing state. How many early, mid, late stage startups do we have in our state? What are they building? How much money have they raised? And how many employees do they have? And then every time I meet with you, if I'm the ecosystem leader, I'm going to show you how that's progressing, right? That's the story that the governor needs. He can go raise money with that, right? He can tell a good story with that. That's what we need. Not just every now and then. We need to show that every quarter And that will matter hugely. So it's how many startups, how many employees, what they're building, how much money they've raised. Just think of that in a spreadsheet. Not that hard, because everyone wants their name in it. So startups are going to want to share, and if they don't, they're probably not the right fit anyway. Second thing I would measure like crazy, and I said this to Lindsay, is how much outside capital you're bringing into this state to startups every quarter. That's in PitchBook. I know you guys have a PitchBook license and you're working on it. This crowd needs to see that progress. When I first got to Cincinnati, it was just anemic. It was kind of embarrassing, but it was just the truth. But then, over 4 years, because we had a fund of funds like you're setting up, we would invest in institutional capital outside of Ohio. Shock horror. They didn't like that. I'm like, yeah, we're going to. Because then they come to town, and then they see our startups, and then our startups don't starve because they get to meet early stage, VCs that have been around the world and know good quality deals, and also, they can meet our corporations, and that would be good too. So those are two very easy, understood metrics. And then the third is the pilots, and you can track the revenue. So how many you got, what stage, how many people, how much money have you raised? Then you've got easy stuff relative to capital in PitchBook, and then you've got pilots. How many large companies are partnering with startups to actually use and buy the product, even for a short period of time? Okay, that's all I have today. Just a little bit of this and that. I really enjoyed it. It was an honor to be here this morning. I just loved learning from the Lieutenant Governor. I loved kind of hearing the latest of what's going on in the state. There's a lot of work to do. Let's just get to work and build a strong ecosystem. Thank you very much.